Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. It's been a while. Hardly any worth reviewing last week. This week, a lot to review, and a late delivery means I've only just got around to doing one. I'll do my best to get through as many as I can, though, and today we're starting with Ancestral Recall. It's one that I have had my own for a while. A while back, Comics Ahoy, on their social media, dropped the cover artwork. This is the back cover, so I didn't get the branding on it, but you do get a much better sense of what's going on, and it is absolutely iconic. I love that artwork. 100% made me want to pay attention to it. Then I read a little bit more, and it turns out there's some fantastic just ideas that you can explore with the core concept of the story. Now, I'm going to try my best to talk about some of this, but as you can clearly see, I am not a person of colour, and I really think I'm going to run the risk of saying something massively inappropriate. So I'm going to apologise ahead of time, and I hope that if something comes across inarticulately or just terribly formulated, I hope I can be forgiven. Because my first thought when I saw it was, I am aware of generational trauma. I have read quite a bit on this subject, and I've seen terrible racists try to pretend it isn't really a thing that can happen, and they go into very, very bad pseudo-scientific explanations of why it can't happen. This looks like it's trying to take this idea of things from the history of people of colour and look instead at the wonderful things that can and have happened for individuals and as cultures. And it's not trying to pretend that generational trauma doesn't happen, but it's also not trying to make it the focus. This is not a story about black pain and black trauma, although it also doesn't ignore it, because we have a contemporary part of the story which absolutely feeds off this idea of the generations of stuff that people have gone through that led them to the situation they're in America right now. I hope that wasn't too badly put. And I like the idea, I do. I think conceptually it's fantastic. And again, because I've done some reading on this subject, I know I am exceptionally white, but I do find this kind of thing very, very interesting. And being an anti-racist and anti-fascist, I think the worst thing I could do is not read up on this kind of thing. And so when I saw that they were taking people from history who were exceptional human beings, who were people of colour, I was like, yes, this is brilliant. It actually gives far more credence to this idea of there should be a Black History Month, which isn't just also slavery, because that's very much a part of white history as well, still. But there are exceptional people of colour, who've done wonderful things in maths and science and arts and technology and performance and just so many things. And they get ignored because nobody spends the time talking about them, except in very, very specific cases. This is going to be an example where you can drop multiple in each issue, depending on the problems the characters are facing, and it will allow people who are interested in the history of it to get access to these characters' stories, and also it's a really good device for storytelling. Now, that being said, I do love this entire concept. I review comic books, not just the ideas behind them, so I do have a couple of very, very minor critiques. Number one, artwork. And this is a situation I've seen in a few books recently, or maybe I was noticing it more recently, is page one artwork. I'm like, oh, that's fine, that's cool, it looks a little bit loose, a little bit scratchy, but I like that style. And then some point around about page 6 to 12 or even 20, I'm like, damn, this artwork is really good. And I have to flick back to the beginning to be like, oh, this feels like the artist, over just a few pages, has got a better idea about how they want their characters to be represented in the world. And obviously, not every artist has the time and the mental energy to go back and redo entire pages of a comic book to bring everything up to the style they find. It's not a terrible thing, but it's noticeable in this one because the later pages do look better. The inking is a little bit smoother, a little bit cleaner. The colouring then is a bit more free to play around with those, and it works fantastically. Second, again, very, very minor critique is there's a lot going on in this comic book. We have two characters with their own issues, both physically and mentally. We have the entire story of the ability to take hold of memories from the past, how that affects the person in the contemporary world. We have an introduction of a character who does quite a bit of a lore dump, but in a very, very fantastical way, which really, really works for me, because we get a sense of who her character is and why she would talk like that, but also the response to her from the other characters tells us about them and the world as well. Just genuinely really, really well done. The actual plot that exists in the contemporary thing, it needs its own time to do it. And then there's also some really good action sequences and some quite nice thought-provoking moments. And sometimes, for a first issue, it just feels like there's a little bit too much going on, and it means the flow of the narrative is just a little bit jumbled and it's not quite as smooth as I would have liked. I don't think this is necessarily going to impact it terribly going forward, because they need to spend this first issue doing quite a lot of things, and through the rest of it we can then just concentrate on the story, on the narrative, on the flow, and the characters, and heading towards a resolution. And I absolutely trust based on this first issue that is going to happen, and I'm in for the ride. I actually want to see what happens. I like the characters, I like the concept, I like the world, and the action sequences do look fantastic, and the artwork is brilliant. I really can't wait to get the rest of this comic book. I absolutely loved it. That's it for me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after everyone, stay safe. Bye!